Hey, this is Amanda Hammett, and this is the Millennial Rockstar podcast. Today on the Millennial Rockstars podcast, I interviewed Danny Schneider, and Danny is a rock star. And this episode talks a lot about how do you spot that rock star before you even hire them. Now, funny thing is, Danny was nominated by Jamie Salter, who I interviewed a few episodes back, but she knew when she saw his resume and when she met him for the first time that he was going to be a rock star, even though he was A, still in college, and B, guess what? Danny had zero work experience, but Jamie knew he was going to be a rock star, and guess what? She was right. So tune in and check out this episode with Danny, and you can learn how to spot a rock star for yourself. Hey there, this is Amanda Hammett. I am known as the Millennial Translator because I help companies attract, retain, and engage top millennial talent. And today you're with us on the Millennial Rockstar podcast, and today's rock star is Danny Schneider. Welcome to the show, Danny.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you for having me.
I am super excited to talk to you. The person that actually nominated you is really awesome, and she's a really awesome rock star millennial herself. So, Danny, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, don't tell her that too much, all right? Just between me and you. But no, like you mentioned, or I don't know if you did actually. So I work for Saya LTL Freight. Mm-hmm. I have been working here for over 2 years now. Actually, I graduated from Western Carolina University and was hired by that person that you talked about, Jamie Salter. Mm-hmm. She brought me on to her team and, little work experience, actually pretty much no work experience. And I've been working with Saya ever since, and had a couple of promotions along the way. And really enjoyed my time here. Kind of a brief career, but just getting started.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Jamie had nothing but just high praises to sing about you. So when she started talking about you, I was like, all right, I've got to have him on the show as well. All right. So tell us a little bit about your background. You mentioned that you are a fairly recent to the career.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about what you're in sales. So tell us a little bit about how you went from college into sales.
Yeah, so it's an interesting transition. So like I mentioned, little work experience, that's really throughout my life. I was actually an athlete for the majority of my life. Throughout high school, I played 3 sports, and then I got to college and played collegiate baseball. So that essentially in itself, a lot of college athletes out there, then they know that's pretty much a full-time job.
Yep.
So, did that for 4 years and had a great time. But then it was, the shoulder kind of blew out a little bit, and it was time to move on to the, real world, you would say.
Okay.
So I was fortunate enough to get in contact with Jamie and Saya actually the summer before I graduated. And we had spoken about an opportunity that didn't go through, actually. They had filled the slots out by the time I interviewed, so that was actually my first little rejection. But it came around, and by the time I graduated, I got back in contact with Jamie and her, and also the manager there, Mike Basso. They brought me on board, and kind of that transition from going to no work experience at all to coming to the corporate lifestyle and working in sales. It was different. Right. It was, didn't know what to expect.
Right.
But, I actually quickly found, Amanda, that a lot of my traits and things that I picked up in sports translated over and translated over into sales. Mm-hmm. So
what exactly were those? What do you think really helped?
I can say definitely this is a combination of just how I am, and then kind of what I've gathered from sports. But competitiveness is definitely number one.
Right.
Especially in sales, you want to be the most competitive person there. You want to win, and that's really what I try to bring every day. It gives you a lot of tools in college baseball specifically. Preparation, understanding really what work goes into being successful, and trying to do more than the person you're competing against, right? So those are some of the top 2 things that I've taken away. There's other teamwork,
right?
That's also extremely important. Being able to be coachable, which
that's a good one.
I think that's been real big for me, kind of coming into the workspace and. Like I said, little experience, so try to be as big of a sponge as possible.
That's awesome. That's great. And I really think that coachability will take any employee really, really far. Even employees that maybe don't have that natural knack or talent for, whatever the role is.
Right.
That ability to take in coaching, not take it personally, and just say, okay, how can I improve? That is one of the main things that I look for when I go into a company and say, okay, these are kind of the skill sets you need to be looking for in the interview process. That is in the top 5.
No, I've found that to be extremely helpful. I mean, in my industry, there's people of a lot of different ages, and actually most people I deal with have been in the industry probably as long as I've been alive. But what I've found is that you've never been around too much is to kind of learn new things. We have our annual conferences, whether it's someone fairly new like me or someone that's been around and for 30 years, you can always learn new things. And taking criticism or taking coaching the right way can definitely translate in a positive manner.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. So let's talk about, we talked a little bit about what things have worked for you so far. And granted, you're pretty young in your career, which is awesome that you're already, have some rock star status. But have you found that there's certain things that just have not worked for you in your career, whether it's just certain work styles, management styles, anything like that?
As far as management styles go, I haven't run into that quite yet. And no, that's not just because Jamie's probably listening or other managers are probably listening. But because kind of going back to the sports background, you're used to different coaching, different management styles. So you kind of adapt to that. And again, you try to take the positives out of that.
Right.
Really, I guess the roadblock that I would say that I've run into, it kind of alludes to what I was talking about earlier, is dealing with people with experience and kind of overcoming the thought of, oh, okay, you have an experience, you're young, that type of deal. You really don't know what you're talking about. Or, I might be better suited off with someone that's been working in this industry a lot longer.
Right.
Something along those lines. That's something kind of how I struggle, or not struggle, but I run into with my customers versus more internally and kind of adjusting the corporate or, the work lifestyle.
Right. Okay. That's totally fair. And to be completely honest with you, I am way more advanced in my career than you are, and I still run into that. So
Right, exactly. And I hear that with my direct manager right now. I mean, I think he's technically a millennial as well, but one of the olders, I guess you could say. But he ran into that in his career, and that was something he had to overcome. And I've gotten that objection quite a bunch, a bunch of times. So it's something I'm still learning to work with, something I really can't control, to be honest, but, just finding other ways to work with customers and get them to understand that, I'm in my role for a reason. And, the position I was given, people trusted me to do the job. So, if we can move past it, let's go for it.
Awesome. All right. So let's go back to Danny in college and Danny thinking about going into the working world and into the real world. When you go back and you think about that time and the way that you envisioned corporate America or the working world, is there a difference between the way you envisioned it and the reality of the working world? And what was that difference?
So the main thing is, going from a college student, a college athlete, the demand for it. So like I alluded to, playing college baseball was a full-time job, I feel like, and it required a lot of hours, but really getting up, doing your 8 to 5 or even later, getting, some days I'm here 11, 12 hours in this office, kind of that demand and being able to function and kind of get in the zone and work that long. That was something that, honestly, I was not really, I didn't know how I would handle it. Again, I felt pretty confident in myself at first because of my background and just maybe more of my personality. But that was one of the things I had reserves about is just, hey, can I get to work and be functional, by 8 o'clock, that type of deal. And then also just kind of stepping into an industry like freight, which I had no experience in, had no family or anything like that in the freight industry, and learning everything that I can. obviously there's so much out there with this industry that,
Mm-hmm.
I could be in it for years and years and I'll still be learning things.
Yep.
But specifically to this industry is understanding what I'm selling, understanding how I can best help my customers and, turn it around into something that'll work out for my company and their company. So it was all brand new to me. So kind of a long answer short, just everything was new, Amanda, and, I had to get used to that. And anytime you kind of do something new, I guess inside, whether you admit it or not, there's reserves, or you're going to have some questions, but it's overcoming those.
Okay. That's awesome. All right. Now let's talk a little bit about your boss or your old boss, Jamie.
Okay.
Feel free to just go.
I'll be honest.
Care about that. Is there anything that your current boss, your old boss, Jamie, or maybe a mentor has really done to keep you engaged, to keep you productive, and to keep you driving forward? Because sales can be rough.
Yeah.
And so is there anything that they've done that really has helped you just, keep going?
Yeah, I'll kind of go on both. I'll talk about former management, Jamie, and then a gentleman by the name of Mike Basso that I referred to earlier.
Yeah.
Talk about what they did that kind of got me to where I am, and then what my current management does. So as far as Jamie goes and Mike goes, I think what helped me the most was just the belief, right? Like I told you, I showed him a resume and it said sports, essentially. And then, I could turn that into an interview. But having the thought of, all right, we see that you're worth this investment and bringing you on board. We're size $1.5 billion company, right? So it's a big corporation. There are a lot of plans here, but to kind of trust in me like that, and not just, hey, we're going to bring you on board, but continuing as I was working there, as I had questions and I ran into things. Both Mike and Jamie did a great job of believing me. And then the position that I'm in currently, which is a national account representative, I went from the sales development side, and then I took a brief little project promotion type deal. And then when Jamie was the head of the department for a little bit, I was kind of stuck is because the project had ran out and I had done a fairly successful job as a sales development rep. So Jamie kind of approached me as far as this position. It had been something that was open. And some of the executives at our company here really wanted to push this position as something that, could be important for our company. So Jamie approached me, and, I really hadn't thought of applying for this, and said, I really think you should, take a look at this. I really think you'd be a good fit. You've done a good job in other things. So it really was her approaching me, and then kind of realizing, what, yeah, I can work with some of these companies that are doing, millions of dollars of revenue a year. I can take this step. And so having that confidence in me, I think from a coaching, from a management standpoint, that is definitely, definitely something that's worked. And so kind of with my current management, Jamie, of course, has gotten another opportunity and isn't with Saya. But I have someone, in here that worked with Jamie. He's, been around the industry for a while. And then we also have a new director in town. So I kind of have two bosses I work closely with.
Right.
But from that standpoint, what works for me, and I enjoy a challenge, right? Competitiveness, like I referred to earlier, they're always willing to lay down a challenge. And it's while, I had a great year last year. And while they're praising me for that, it's all right. What are we going to do in 2018? We have goals and, kind of got to step it up a little bit. So it's kind of a contrast of throwing those challenges at me and knowing that I can take those in stride and, be coachable and what I have to do to hit my numbers. But, that's something that I really enjoy is not overhitting on it where it's, you need to be at this number. If not, there's some pressure on it, but great job last year. Now, how are we going to turn this into more? How are we going to grow more, and get more revenue? But, and the kind of same goes with this current management that Jamie had with me is the belief in me,
right.
Giving me different capabilities and being flexible with my position, letting me do things that, will help me out. That's, kind of along the lines.
Okay, that's really cool. So would you say that your current management, I mean, they're putting out these challenges to you and really appealing to that competitive nature within you, but are they also kind of helping you along the way, or is it just like, hey, this is what it is, go for it? Or are they kind of giving you that?
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, no
Yeah.
doubt. There's help along the ways, and I'm glad you bring that up because again, that's something that can go towards your last question.
Yeah.
The manager that I work with, Jake, more directly, he has some more experience and he's becoming more hands-on in my accounts. If I ever need to bring someone in on a conference call, I'm trying to maybe close a deal, just to have the manager on the phone or have the manager on the call, that
Right.
presence, can go a long ways. So Jake's very hands-on with that. And then anytime I really have a question, like I said, coming brand new into the industry, the more the more you're in freight, the more you realize you don't know. So just being open to kind of advising on what I need to know, mainly about the industry, mainly about experiences that they have had in the past. I mean, I think that's something that really helps me out.
Perfect. That's awesome. That's really good. So is there anything that Saya as a company or the culture within your team, is there anything that they do, whether it's perks, whether it's benefits, or it's just that team culture that they do that really helps you to create this sense of loyalty to Saya and to your team?
Yeah, well, it's kind of the fact that you have the opportunity. Like I mentioned, it's a very large company, and I've been around for over 90 years and still growing pretty fast, actually. A lot of expansion here lately. So it's the fact that you have that opportunity to grow. There are endless possibilities. Right now I'm in sales. I started off, in the sales development role and inside sales, kind of an entry level job, but there's a ton of different directions that I'm able to go.
Okay.
My particular position is the only one within our company. We have over 9,000 employees, and I have the only national account representative position that works with just third-party logistics companies. I have that, and so it gives me the flexibility while I'm in a corporate office, with 4 floors of SIA members, to individualize my role. So I kind of get to do things my way. I get to bring new ideas to the table and help expand on that. And in SIA, again, for an old, large company, which you don't normally see, they have the flexibility to say, yeah, that makes sense. That would actually help us out, whatever it might be. And kind of going on the environment, within my department, they really do a good job as far as keeping everyone engaged. Setting goals for everyone. It's not just me. They're challenging. We're bringing on new position, always thinking of new ideas, different ways to service our customers. And so that really keeps everyone on their toes, I guess you could say. And kind of the demographic that they've gone after in the past is more recent, out of college or into the mid to late 20s type deal. So a lot of millennials in my department as well. And, inside sales,
Right.
specifically, is an extremely big part of what we have going forward in 2018.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah.
That's really cool. So you mentioned something, I'd like to circle back to it in this last question. You mentioned something when you have an idea, you bring in a new idea to the table, they're like, all right, let's go for it. So do you find that they're very open and willing to not only take new ideas and run with them, but also to kind of help you brainstorm and think outside the box? Are they willing to think outside the box?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, because if I bring it to my direct manager, and a lot of times it might mean getting something approved, getting something,
Right.
investing a little bit more money. Like, for instance, this new laptop I was telling you a little earlier about,
Right.
things like that. But they do, as long as it makes sense, as long as I can present it in a fact is, hey, I'd really think this would, be good for me, or this would be nice to have, or something like that. If I can present it in a fact of, this is the return that we're going to get as a company, and this is what, I see, helping us improve, or the benefits to SIA and, as a company, and to me and my numbers, that's something they're very receptive to.
All right. So as long as you can build the business case, they're willing to back you up.
Yeah, I mean, it goes like that as far internally and, with my customers. Because if I'm just sitting here saying, hey, we can get you a little better price or we can get you in the ballpark, that's really not going to give me a ton, or it's not really going to go a long ways. You want to show what the value is.
Right.
You hear people all the time talk about ROI, things like that, but
Mhm.
it goes internally and externally as well.
I agree wholeheartedly. All
Yeah.
right. So you've touched on a few of these things, but I want you to spell them out. And Jamie and I actually had an offline conversation about this before when she nominated you. So I already know what she was.
All right.
But what is it that you think made you stand out? Because you have admittedly came into the workforce with a resume that was basically, I was a college athlete with no work experience whatsoever. But Jamie, from my understanding, knew immediately you were a rock star, and she was determined to get you on her team. So what was it that made you stand out? What do you think?
I joke with her too, because like I said, the first time we talked, she rejected me. So then she came back and asked me to be on board. It's like, is she gonna just bring me in again and tell me no? So I always joke with her about that, and she'll tell me, she's like, I really wanted to have you, really wanted to have you. But I can really say, Amanda, what sets me apart, and I think I briefly mentioned this earlier, is the work that I want to put in. The work as far as learning my position, learning my industry, working for my customers. It's not really an 8-to-5 job for me, and
Right.
that's kind of what I brought to the table as far as my athlete background. I know how to outwork my competition. That's something you don't just show up, whether it's baseball, whether it's your job, whatever it is, you don't just show up and outperform someone. You have to put in the work.
Mm-hmm.
So, whether, like I said, just being willing to invest in myself, in my career, that's something that Jamie and Mike, Basso really installed in me. But, the hard work, working sometimes till like 10 o'clock at night, not just, I'm not here working for 16 hours a day or whatever it might be, but I really need to get this proposal in on time, or I really need to, check the statistics for one of my customers, see how we've been doing as far as the service goes. So I'm prepared for that 8 a.m. call.
Right.
Like us, that is really something that I can, really advocate for myself, is I'm going to outwork anyone.
Okay, that's perfect. And so what do you think it was on your resume that really stood out that Jamie was like, I need to call this guy out of all the hundreds of other resumes? I mean, what was it?
Yeah, I don't know if it was something on my resume, but the fact that what Jamie was looking for as far as an inside sales, and my first conversation was over the phone, right?
Right.
And with the job they're looking for me, it was essentially cold calling, a lot of over the phone stuff. So it's how I sounded to customers, how I was able to speak, being confident. I think that's another big trait that comes into play, whether you're new to an industry and a job or not, but to have the confidence in yourself, to know that you can get the job done. I think that's something that Jamie would have picked up on right away. And that's another reason she would have had me come right back in for the interview. I know the second interview process was very, very short, because it was Jamie, kind of getting me back in here. And it's like, I liked what I saw in the summer. We didn't have room, but now we do. Please, we would like to have you come on board. And again, the confidence in knowing my abilities, and trying to grow as a salesman, grow as a professional, that's something I think Jamie would have picked up on.
All right. So is there anything that you wish, and I don't know how many other companies you interviewed with at any point, but is there anything that you wish that companies knew about the interview process and hiring younger employees?
So I did not really get to interview with too many other companies.
Okay.
To be honest, it was like a week after I graduated. So
Okay.
I got fortunate there.
You did. You've got really.
Yeah, no, and 2.5 years later, going on 3 years, it's worked out. But something I think, just to not overlook, you look down, you see, like I said, you see the lack of experience. You see someone's maybe inability or someone's inexperience in a particular industry, not just a job.
Right.
But, to not overlook someone, kind of their characteristics as far as who they are and what they're willing to do. And you can kind of tell, because I've actually had the ability to interview people to come work for SIA. So I've had the ability to sit on the other side of that chair. But, when someone says, no, I'm willing to work hard, you can take that in stride. But when they can tell you, I know that, preparation goes into this. I know that, sometimes I'm going to have to work longer or do more than what's expected of me, right? You don't want to just be at status quo. You don't want to be at goal. You want to be above goal. Right. So the ability to kind of judge a person and how far they're willing to go and what they're willing to do, I really hope that that's something that companies aren't overlooking, right? Because otherwise, if you're looking at someone's experience, you're looking at a resume, you're really just, kind of looking for something to wow you before the interview,
right?
Then that's not going to work too much. But and I'm sure most companies aren't that way. And like I said, my inexperience maybe coming here as far as how much I've interviewed, it's mainly been internally with SIA. But just trying to judge a person's character more than their actual profession.
All right. I mean, and at the end of the day, when you're hiring young employees who are fresh out of college, they're not going to have a ton of experience. They might have a bunch of part-time jobs, or they might have a bunch of, internships, but,
yeah,
what are you gathering from that?
Yeah, I technically had an internship in college. It was through one of my senior classes. It was one of those deals, but that didn't define me too much as far as my professional life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, fantastic, Danny. This has been really awesome. And I think that this will give a lot of really great insight for other companies when they're looking at hiring millennial rock stars themselves. So Danny, is it okay if our audience wants to reach out to you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, absolutely. Connect with me, ask me any questions. More than willing to talk and meet new people.
Fantastic. Well, I will include a link to your profile in the show notes for the show. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us for this episode of Millennial Rockstars. And Danny Schneider, thank you so much for being on it.
No, thank you, Amanda. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of the Millennial Rockstar podcast. If you are looking for even more information on millennials and some free resources, visit my website at amandahammett.com. The link is below. It's amandahammett.com. There you can download a free millennial employee engagement guide that will give you all kinds of tips and tricks on how to keep those millennials engaged on a day-to-day basis. Because we all know that millennials who are happy at work are more productive at work.